Evening and welcome to Real Life, Real Solutions with Coach Tami, where we provide solutions that are realistic, effective, attainable, and limitless. And so excited about my guest on tonight. First of all, I want to just put this plug out there. This is her first time joining us, but it will not be her last because she has so much wisdom and a plethora of different avenues and topics. And so I'm just going to put that out there to her early. But I'm so excited to have Miss Tara Spates, relationship coach. Again, she has so much knowledge in so many different areas. So welcome to Real Life, Real Solutions, Coach Tara. I'm so excited to have you here with us on today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into tonight's interview.
Well, as you said, my name is Tara Spates. I'm a relationship coach, and relationship because there, as you said, so many facets. It's relationships with your family, with your significant other, with your children. Which tonight we're gonna kind of take that children aspect with children and education. But I started with my own business, dealing with behavioral risk, children with behavioral issues. So my husband and I had a practice where we would go and kind of be that liaison between the parent and the school and help these children who, for lack of a better word, just had different issues happen as they were growing up and did not know how to manifest that or communicate it so that, educators or even their families could relate to them without it being an altercation. So we had that business for a few years, and that kind of parlayed into me working in a high school, which is where I gained a lot of my knowledge, which I'm going to share some tonight. And it allowed me to be able to see from the inside how to then help parents on the outside navigate that process, because it can be somewhat intimidating. And then even with my own kids, I was a crazy parent that kind of started to work in the school that my child was going to, torturing them, but also being the eyes and the ears to know what was going on, were they getting the best options, the best education, the best classes, and also, to help them navigate the course of their academic careers. So, with all that said, it definitely is a passion because it's not an easy road to travel when you are the parent. And sometimes, as the educator, it's not as easy dealing with certain parents.
I I totally understand that because I was that parent, right? Um, and just even having somewhat um, of a little bit of background in this area, right? I wish I would have had the opportunity to have someone or have this conversation when my children were in school, because I did have a child, that has some developmental disabilities. And sometimes the schools aren't, they either don't know all of the resources or they're not willing to be patient enough to share the resources.
Mhm.
And I'll share my own journey with that later. But one of the things that you said, about being that crazy parent. So, what was the greatest difference, or what was the change in your perspective once you weren't just a parent, but when you became the educator? Oh, well, let me say it this way: what made you change from wanting to just be that parent to actually being an educator to get that knowledge?
I think they both ran and coincided with each other. Being in the school, you were able to talk to some of the educators, some of leadership, and you were able to present some different alternatives to how you deal with a student from a parental aspect, where unfortunately sometimes, because teachers become guarded and leadership with the parents who come in and are not as tactful. So they kind of paint a broad brush and they don't really want to deal to some level. And then the parents see, teachers kind of standoffish or yelling. And so everyone kind of goes into their corners. So I was able to see that and then be able to offer some tips and tools to the school to say, just like you have issues, there are issues at home. These students, um, they're not all lost and they're not all bad. Some of them are just going through things that they don't know how to maneuver. I mean, heck, we don't know how to maneuver a lot of things that happen in life. So we put a lot of expectations on those students when they're in a classroom that I started to notice that some of the adults didn't navigate well. And then I was able to kind of bring that up in certain, meetings, certain career development that they had for the staff, and it just morphed into me getting a job. And I always say it's God ordained because being there as a parent gave me the opportunity to then become a staff member. But I was a staff member, but on the edges, so I can still kind of be myself, be kind of edgy without the parameters that other teachers had of what they could or could not do in the classroom. So, for instance, I know I was in a high school, and one of the boys, I don't know, he caught himself hiding and went into the bathroom. And I walked in behind him. I was like, "Everybody, put their stuff away. Let's go. Why are you in here?" And he was like, "Miss Space, what are you doing in here?" I'm like, "Don't." So I was able to be. They didn't know how to take me. So I was considered the graduation coach. My job was to get them through school, through high school in 4 years, not that 6, 7 year plan.
Mhm.
And because I had that other role, I could, like I said, I could push the envelope a lot more than some of the teachers could.
Yeah, that's good. So, what would you say was some of the challenges coming in as a parent with a new perspective, with an already, I want to say, settled staff that's used to the crazy parents, used to the kids that don't want to listen, and they just get stuck in that status quo. How receptive were they to someone coming in with that passion really for, not that they don't have
Originally,
the passion for the
no,
kids?
they weren't. Originally, they weren't. Because like you said, they were set in their ways. They had seen different programs. I mean, every couple of years, the state or someone's coming up with something new. So it's
Mhm.
just for them. Okay, they just do a title. They put another person in here with a position. Nothing's gonna change. And what I decided to do was, instead of trying to change the teachers, I focused on changing the students.
Mm.
So once the teachers saw that I was effective, and nothing's 100%, but they saw that I was effective with some students, then they would call me before they kind of, gave detention or suspension. They would call me to speak to the student first. And then so that gave me a chance to say, okay, what's going on? Let's talk about it. Look, this is what's going to happen if we don't figure this out. You're going to
Mhm.
be suspended or in school suspension. You need to get your classes done. Um, you build a rapport with the students, and the one thing I can say that I knew, but until you experience it, you don't really know. You know that a child can see through crap. Can I say that?
Maybe you can say crap, just whatever. It's the
um,
truth. They see through it.
they can see through the minutia, and watching those students deal with certain personalities, it was like, oh, okay, you can't just give them these cookie cutter answers. You have to be real. You have to come to them real. And when I said to them, listen, this is what it is. It's not good. We don't like it, but because you didn't go to classes or you missed these credits, this is what we're looking at. They received it because they trust that I had their best interests, that I didn't just cast them out just because. If I'm telling them they can't do something, it's because you just can't do it. But I don't have an ulterior motive where they felt a lot of the staff had, just didn't care. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because it wasn't just the girls, it was the boys. And I think they surprised me the most to see boys who you think are tough and walking around the halls like, who am I? Get in a closed room with someone that they know care and just break down.
Wow. Wow. Hmm. That's interesting to hear, right? Because we always see that a lot of times our children, like you said, they put on these personas, And what I hear is like being an advocate for them, and being someone that they can trust to intervene to help, you
Hmm.
know, get before they get to that consequence level of things is really good. What would you say are some of the misconceptions about advocating for children's education?
Well, the misconception is to be an advocate means that you're against the school system, because you're not. You're trying to connect the community with the school system to make it work best for the student. Um, Another misconception is that you have the power to go in there and like demand change, or you are working within the same confounds that the parent will have to, that the teacher will have to. The one thing an advocate has is the right advocate will look at all the pieces of that pie and then figure out, how can I add another ingredient? So I may not be able to change the pieces of the pie, but I might be able to add something to it.
Mm.
And that's what a good advocate will do, because that added piece may be what can change the dynamics. Um, Alternative school, we had a lot of students that were on that 5, 6 year plan. And once they became seniors, they really realized, okay, wait, I played a lot. I'm really not going to graduate, because I mean, a kid is a kid. Everything's a joke until it's not.
Until that realization kicks in.
And when you go and they tap that on the shoulder, get out the line. You do not need to go to graduation practice. Um, yeah, that's when they come in tears, like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm not graduating." And I would pull up, their profile. Let's see what classes you took. Let's see what you're missing. And sometimes the truth was, well, we can put you in alternative school, and you can make up as many credits as you need to this next semester, but it's all on you. You won't graduate with your class, but you will get a diploma, and we can talk about next steps. And it's like those real conversations I had to have with some seniors. And funny thing is, sometimes the parents were worse than the student. The student was like, "Okay, I'm out of here. I just want to be out of here." The parent was like, "But family's coming for the graduation, and I rented a hall, and we're supposed to have a like." It was the hoopla of it more than the fact that your kid can still get a degree and continue on with their life. They were more concerned with the festivities and to be able to say,
Aesthetic.
yes.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting because you would think, I want to phrase this question slash comment carefully, that there would be more involvement prior to this with parents, right? Prior to this time frame of finding out that your child can't graduate.
You would
So
think.
like that whole path, right? That whole advocacy path and dealing with parents. Um, what would you say is the hindrance to them, to the parents also grasping the realization of what's happening before it gets to that point?
Life.
Mm,
There was so many different dynamics. There were single parents that had to work. And it was like, I expect you to go to school and do what you're supposed to do because I have to work. A lot of parents are like, you're in high school, especially when you become a junior and senior. It's kind of like, I expect you to go and you know what you're doing. And if you need me, let me know. Because I can remember even when I was in high school, my mother didn't come to the high school. She just depended on me to go and do what I needed to do. Thank God I, was a responsible young person. That doesn't mean I get into stuff, but as far as my academics, I knew I had to get good grades and I had to graduate on time. So there are a lot of young people that are giving a lot of responsibility that they're not ready for.
mm,
And the parents will come for the football games, they will come for cheerleading, they will come and argue because you're not letting their child go to prom, but the grades are the last for
mm.
a lot of parents. Not all, not most, but a lot of them. That's the last thing they come for.
So, and I'm gonna ask this last question before we take a quick commercial break. How does that impact your ability to really advocate for that education, right? Because as the advocate, you're in the school, you're working with them, but when the and trust me, I totally get it that a lot of times the parental unit isn't able to support in certain ways.
Mhm.
But I think one of the downfalls in society is, like you said, people will support the activities, the football games, the cheerleading, the track, the this
Mhm.
and that, and turn kind of a blind eye and a deaf ear to the educational component. So if you were to talk to a parent who was dealing with that, right, had a child that is active, with different sports, but academically they're struggling, how would you encourage that parent to kind of push their student um, in the way of improving their education?
First, you have to have a conversation to see where that parent is. There are a lot of parents who are intimidated because they don't have the aptitude um, to really understand what their child is going through. So if I'm not comfortable with academics, it's kind of hard for me to push my child. I want them to. There's some parents who overcame whatever situations they had and said, my child is going to have better. And they have reached out to whomever they needed to make sure their children was in a better position than they were. But there are a lot of parents who haven't been able to do that. And you depend on the counselors and the teachers and the staff to get your child across that stage. And as an advocate, you become a counselor and an advocate because you talk to that parent and you find out where are they. Like there was a young man, and I'll make it quick because I have to go to break. There was a young man that was having some issues, behavioral issues, and when I talked to him, he would kind of say what was going on, but I would get the nice young man. The one time he was going to be suspended and we had to call his mother in, I saw a whole nother young man, the one that she gets, and he was totally disrespectful. And I
Mm,
kind of pulled him to the side and I said, listen, I don't feed you. I don't pay for your housing, your clothes, or anything. And you don't talk to me that way. How dare you talk to your mother that provides for you that way? And he began to tell me about some other things that happened in the home.
mm,
So they were dealing with a whole nother dynamic. So she don't even know how to deal with him or less come and fight for his education. She's just trying to keep him like out of trouble. So there's so many different dynamics that go on in the school.
yeah. Wow, thank you for sharing that. That leads me to another question, but we're going to take a quick commercial break, and I'm going to come back with a follow up question, even just to your scenario. So stay tuned with us, guys. We'll be right back after the short commercial break. All right, thank you guys, and welcome back to Real Life, Real Solutions with Coach Tammy and my special guest on tonight, Coach Tara, relationship coach, and we are talking about advocating for your children's education. And right before break, Tara, you were giving us a scenario of a student that you had a certain experience with. Um, and in that, you said, there were some family dynamics that were kind of a hindrance to him and kind of didn't enable his mom to really fight for his education because there were so many of the things that she was dealing with. And that leads me to wonder, because when we grew up, not that, community, right? Community was more present, right, when we were growing up. I
Yep.
know for me, if
Yep.
someone on my block or 2 blocks over or 5 blocks over saw me cutting up
Mhm.
between school and home, before I could get home, my mother knew, and that was a
Exactly.
whole different conversation.
Hmm.
Um, but sadly, that component isn't doesn't exist in that way. But how do you think we as a community, whether it's teachers, people in the, neighbors, uh, religious leaders, how do you think as a community we can help with advocating for our children's education?
I think it's just what you said. It's communication. It's communication. If you talk to your neighbor, you will know there's things going on. And you don't have to know the details. You'll just know, you know what, she kind of looks a little sad, or she looks stressed, or I see her coming in and out all the time. Like I know she has to be tired. And unfortunately, we're in a state where you don't want to be in anybody's business because one, you don't want them to cuss you out because they think you're in their business. Um, so if you do it, if you have the right advocates in the school, they can kind of create a safe zone where the parents, and I will tell you this, what I also learned is, and I wish the adults knew this, doesn't matter if you're white, Spanish, or black, or any color in between, you're going through some of the same things. And these kids realize who cares, who's supporting them, and who's not. I even had, and this surprised me, I had a white boy talking to me. He had been in jail, and he came out of jail, and like during senior year. So it was a rush to try to get his schedule right. Let's get him going. Well, he had no parent to support him. He was staying with the grandfather. And when he came out of jail, the grandfather was like, "Well, I don't want any problems. You can't stay here." So now you have the dynamic of, okay, where are you going? And then what I didn't know, this was in Georgia, so it might be different in Jersey. I don't know. But he had to pay probation. So you're in school, you're not working, and if you don't pay probation, you have to go back to jail. Like
Wow.
the systems that are set up for is just crazy. So I was able to help him get a job. But one of the administrators tried to help him pay one of his fees one month, and he said no. And when she walked away, I was like, "Why wouldn't you let her help you?" And he was like, "I don't trust her." And now this was a white young man and a white administrator. When you're talking to my little black self, and I'm like, I
Wow.
didn't understand because we all come with these preconceived notions. And he said, "I trust you. I don't trust her." So it's like they have that own innate ability to know who truly is
Mhm.
supportive of them, whether you can do anything or not, they appreciate it. And I was able to then connect with parents because their child would say, there's this woman in here, and she talks to us like, sometimes I had to snag somebody by the collar. And I had a teacher say to me, because I think I said to one kid running down the hall, I said, if you don't get your ghetto behind back over here, we're going to have a problem. And she said, I wish I could talk to them like that. And I said, if you treated them all the same, you could.
Mm.
Like, you can't treat them different and then think like they know I'm not saying anything bad. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm using the word ghetto, they know, okay, Miss Space joking with me, or she can get that off because she will say that to a white student, to a Spanish student, to whomever. She's treating us all the same. I'm like, they know that you don't treat them all the same. So that's another thing too. Like if educators realized, let me say this. I've seen teachers come into school carrying whatever issues they have at home. So they're coming in with the attitude, or they're coming in feeling bad. And we're supposed to understand Miss So and so, Mrs. So and so is having a bad day, but you don't give that same grace to the students.
Mm.
You're not okay if they come in with a funky attitude. You don't even try to find out what happened to them before they got here. You just go to the principal, go to the counselor. And I think if the adults remember that they're going through stuff, so are these kids, I think it'll be a little easier.
Yeah, that's good. You said two things that I want to highlight or piggyback off of. One is the racial disparities. How do you, with being an educator in different states, especially in different fields, how do you feel racial disparities either handicap or enhance the level of advocacy children receive?
It's the mindset of the educator. If you go in not seeing, not we're not colorblind. I hate when people say that. We're not colorblind, but if you go in there not worrying about the color or the race or the heritage and see a young person who you need to teach across the board, we'd be okay. But we have educators, and I've seen it firsthand. I've seen teachers cry because of the racial dynamics and things that were said. So if you have teachers who are feeling um I don't want to say attacked, but they're hearing comments that are derogatory about their heritage, and you're an adult, how do you think these kids are supposed to navigate that?
Mm,
um I can remember my daughter was in a class, and this was an elective. It was supposed to be a Christian elective class, and the instructor told her, I don't know how they got on the topic, but the instructor told her, oh, well, not her, but told the class, what she said, conservatives are Christians and liberals are losers, something like that. But I mean, she equated conservatives to being Christians, and if you were liberal, you were not. And my daughter came home, and I was like, but again, I work in a school, so I was able to go and address that. You may have a child, one that just brushes it off and doesn't say anything, or you can't get in. These schools are so fortified now to be able to address this
yeah,
issue. But now think about the kids that have to be in that class. How are you feeling now? Because
right.
how does that tell me as a teacher, how are you treating my child? If you know she might be a liberal or not, are you treating her different now? So it's things like that. It's the comments that are made. Um, I put my kids in accelerated classes because being on the inside, I saw they were going to get the better education. Not that I thought they were going to be taking AP classes and go to Harvard, but in order for them to stay competitive with people outside of that area, I needed them to be challenged. And I saw that the general population wasn't being challenged as much. But again, I'm on the inside. I was able to go to their counselor and say, these are the classes I want them to take. Most parents will never know that. So now you go to the next level. Are your counselors pushing these kids to their best classes, whether they want them or not? Are you saying to them, listen, if you want to be, I don't even care if you want to be the manager at McDonald's, take that business course so that you can be the general manager. You can own your own franchise. Like, are you giving them the best courses? Or are you just checking off boxes? And unfortunately, a lot of boxes are just checked. And then senior year, you realize, okay, wait, you missed that class or you missed that class.
Wow. That's good. I mean, you brought so much light to situations that we know exist, right? But and I'm gonna ask this next question before we go to our next break. But I think sometimes when we are removed from it and when we're not as active, maybe as we should be as parents, we don't see it or we
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize that it's still there. Like when you mentioned um, just checking off boxes. I can remember being in high school and having a teacher that just wanted to check off boxes with me because they felt I was too talkative or
Mm-hmm.
I'm too inquisitive and you're not going to go to this level anyway, so just take these classes and be quiet and get out of here in your 4 years. And
Mm-hmm.
not really, because like you said, my mom worked a late shift, so she was present, but not really knowing, first of all, what that we could advocate that way, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of school systems kind of shut that door because they don't want parents
Yep.
to know how many resources are available
Mm-hmm.
until you fight for them, right? So with that, and just you know uh, teaching parents or just giving even that information to the children about what's available, but really having that nucleus at the school that that have genuine care,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I believe that's what advocacy is having a genuine care for the well-being of the student even well after they leave, right? Because that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. We're supposed to be setting you up not just to matriculate through these classes, but for success afterwards.
Exactly.
And with that though, I want to ask you, how do you think advocacy has changed over the years, or has it changed over the years?
I think the way the school system is changing is making it harder to be an advocate. Um, I just look, born and raised in Jersey City, and I had to go to the Board of Vet for something. My kids were grown, but I forgot what I was going for. And I walked in and they said, press a button. And then you talk to someone upstairs through an intercom, like you never see a person. I grew up, they had the community liaison sitting at the desk next to the clerk, the secretary. You could walk into the front office. Hey, how you doing, Miss So-and-so? You know people's names. Everything is so disconnected now. You
Yeah,
know, I get with the pandemic, we had to do a lot of Zoom stuff and online stuff, but now it seems like people are trying to make that the norm. And we're getting even more and more disconnected from that human interaction. And I'm sorry, I see you, but I can't really connect because we're not in person.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like when I say connect, I can't really feel your body movement. Like I can see you might
yeah.
make something, but when you're in the same room, you can actually see certain things, the way person move, the mannerisms. Um,
You can
I
feel their vibe, their
You
energy.
can, yeah, you can feel the vibe. Like for me, you'll be able to tell whatever because I don't have a poker face. So whatever I'm feeling, I'm gonna show it. But there are a lot of people who will get that straight face and you can't tell. But then you can start to like you can feel it. You can see body movement, things like that. And they're taking that away. They're taking that away so that you can't get to the school to get to the appropriate people. You have to go through so many layers before you actually get in the door. Um, you can't touch kids. And I get there's some filthy people out there, but kids need that. Some of them will not get it at home. And they were looking for that one, Miss Huckabee that she gives the best hugs or she's going to give me that cookie or they need something that says somebody cares. And sometimes it's a tangible. And
Yeah,
we're losing that.
yeah. You're so right. And unfortunately, it happened even before, it started happening really even before we got into COVID, and that changing in that narrative.
Yeah.
Tara, thank you so much. That has all been such great information and great conversation. We're going to take a quick commercial break, our last commercial break. And then when we come back, I'm going to give the floor to Coach Tara so that she can share some tools, some nuggets, anything that she wants to share to educate us as parents on what we could do to advocate for our children's education, and even just us as a community, how we can better help to advocate for the children in our lives, the children in our communities for their education. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Coach Tara will have the floor. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for staying in tune with us on tonight as we discuss advocating for our children's education with Coach Tara, who has just given us so much encouragement and so much information, so much knowledge. But now is the time where I'm going to allow Coach Tara to come in and give us some tools or some words of wisdom or some suggestions to help us either as parents or community. Uh, Community leaders, community family, to help us all learn to the importance of advocating for our children's education and things that we can do. So, Coach Tara, the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach Tammy. Again, thank you for inviting me on. This is so important that we discuss this because there are a lot of our kids that are still being left behind. And when I say our kids, I mean kids in general, no matter what, dynamics that you come from. And I want to give you some tips for the parents as well as educators because I think everyone, for the most part, cares about our children. And we just need to figure out how to work together effectively in order to get the best success for our students for our kids. And I want to kind of give you this short story that's going to lead into my first tip. When my son was in fifth grade, he was getting A's in his English course. And I started reading his English papers. They weren't A papers. I went to school and I asked the teacher, why are you grading this an A? And it's not an A. So she told me it's an A on the curve based on what the other students are doing. I told her, don't curve my students based on who's in this classroom. His competition is outside of this classroom, outside of the state. So I began to rip up his papers and make him rewrite them until I was happy so that his A was truly an A. Now, I understand a lot of parents can't do that, but there are a lot of teachers in the community. There are a lot of teachers or educators in your churches. Let them read your children's paper. Is this truly an A paper? Let them see what they're doing in math. Maybe you're not a math person. I'm not. Can you help me? They're struggling. Like, we have to be able to let go of the pride, let go of any kind of issues we may have with letting someone know we need help or we have shortcomings in certain subjects to get the help we need. So that I say because when he went to college, he was writing papers like nothing because he was taught early on how to do it. We can all do that. You do not have to be an English major. You do not have to be great at writing, but we can all review what our students and our children are doing. And if it doesn't seem right to you, challenge it. I also get that it's hard just going into the school. Use your tools. Email the heck out of your kids' teachers. And if you're not getting responses, then email the administrators. And then keep copies of all of your documentation in case you have to go to the board. The board is the last step, people. Don't go to the board for everything. Try to work with your teachers first, your administrators. Last step would be the board. You also, when your student enters school, and this is from kindergarten to senior year, find out what the requirements are. When you go to open house and they give you that syllabus, read it, especially when they get to middle school and especially when they're in high school. That syllabus will say all the courses your child needs to take in order to graduate, in order to move to the next grade. So make sure when you get their schedule, you check it on that syllabus and you make sure they have the right classes. If you know your child is interested in science, you go to your child's counselor or call them and say, my child is interested in science. I need them to have some STEM classes. You can do that. If you feel like your local school is not providing what your child needs, that's when you can reach out to the board to find out how easy or difficult it would be to transfer them to another school so that they can get the additional courses they need. This is a side note. If you have a student that knows they're going to college, that knows they're going to take some accelerated classes, make sure you communicate that with their counselor and then make sure that they understand what grades they need to get in order to take the AP courses. If you pass an AP class, you can get credit for college. So you can come out of high school and already finished a year or two of college. That's a side note for you brainiacs. If your child has special needs, there are so many resources available. Go to the school, especially if you start to see they're failing classes and you know your child is trying. Now, if they're not, then that's something you do with at home. But if you know they're trying, go to your child's school and ask to have them tested. Once they're tested, and if it comes back that they need alternative teaching methods, they need an IEP, and that's an individual educational plan, then you sit down with the teacher, they'll have a social worker, they will create the plan, you can sign off of it. It goes with them throughout school. If you feel like it's no longer needed, you have to go have them retested to get them off. If not, it follows them for life. If they're in high school and they're getting ready to hit senior year, go to the meetings. Junior, senior year, in that meeting, they will decide, does your child want to graduate? Let's say they're 19. At 19, or do they and go to college or whatever, or do they want to stay till they're 21 and get additional services? You have to go to those meetings because if you don't, your child will be graduated, whether they're ready or not, at 19, and then it's hard to get external services because they're going to go back and say what was agreed upon or set up in school. It is doable. That's a whole other topic for another time. But this is how it makes it easier. Get all the resources while they're in school. They can have DVR, which gives them vocational training. They can be set up with community-based training, which teaches them life skills. Start to help them figure out how do they best learn so that we can get them to pass these tests and the exams and the classes. But you will be surrounded by resources. You just have to inquire. Do not expect or depend on anyone to do that for you. You know your child. Start to ask questions, and no question is a dumb question. You ask as many for how as long as you need to until you get the answer you want. It doesn't have to be combative, but sometimes you have to be pushy, and that's okay.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Coach Tara, for those nuggets. And listen, I liked how you ended it. You don't have to be combative, but you can be pushy. Because for some of us, and I'll be the first to raise my hand, sometimes we don't understand the difference between pushy and combative. I was that parent, like, I was combative in some things, especially because I had a child, and like you said, that's a conversation maybe we can come back with, especially when it comes to children with special needs. Um, I had a child that was, special needs, and getting that fight and advocating for him was hard. So,
Mm-hmm.
because it was so hard and had so many obstacles, I crossed that line of pushy and combative because I'm like, y'all gonna help my baby. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
but thank you so much. This was an
Thank
amazing
you. Thank you.
conversation. Um, like I said at the beginning, she's a wealth of knowledge, very compassionate woman, has a heart for so many people and so many things. That's why I said in the beginning, she'll be back. So y'all get to her face. We'll definitely have her back. But again, thank you for coming on and
Thank you.
sharing. And before we end on tonight, just share with everyone where they can reach you, how they can connect with you. She's also a coach. I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm not sure if she's accepting new clients, but I, you're not. Okay. But just tell everybody how they can connect with you.
Currently by either Facebook, and I have a page that's called Let's Be Real. And that's just where I am right now, just being real about everything. And they can also email me at let's LBR, which stands for Let's Be Real, LBR no excuses at gmail.com. Any questions, if they need any guidance along this journey, just shoot me an email and I'll be more than happy to provide any insight I may have or any direction to someone else who may have more.
Thank you so much. So again, follow her on Facebook at Let's Be Real. Her email LBR no excuses. Right, this is it at Gmail. Make sure that you follow and connect with Coach Tara. And again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us on tonight's episode of Real Life, Real Solutions, where we provide solutions that are realistic, effective, attainable, and limitless. So again, just thank you for joining us, and we'll see
Thank
you on our
you.
next
That was a
episode.
mouthful.
All right. Good night, everyone.